Okay, I think it's time to get this party started. This potentially not as cool as it could be pop-ups and HTML party. Everything seems to be okay over there. Hello, everybody. Hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome for this slightly delayed live stream in that should have happened yesterday, but the last couple of days have been ridiculously busy, and busyness continues unabated, but I didn't want to push this off again. I'm a little behind on my regular channel YouTube video editing, so this may not be a full 2-hour stream. We may just go an hour or so and see what we might come up with here. So I can get a jump on that stuff there. Before we get into anything else, though, how about this? So if you were watching the stream last week when we were live, or possibly you watched the archive of the video, then you'll know that we have been working on this functionality here, a pop-up that will appear when you hover the mouse over the name of a package in one of the override audit reports that provides some level of information about that particular package. And this should work in all reports. The one for override reports and diff reports have more information in the pop-up, as we can see here. This says this package contains one override and one unknown file, which we know that's the unknown file and that's the override, and that's all that's in here. The package report, if we were to go like this, this just has less information. It says this package can't contain overrides in this case because it's only got one item over here. It's only an installed package. Something that's shipped and unpacked may contain overrides. Something that's installed and unpacked, such as this one, may contain overrides. And if there is an example of one, and I'm not sure, I guess default is definitely one. This is a complete override, which means that this package is shipped with Sublime, but there's a package for it in the installed packages folder. And as a result of that, the version in the installed packages folder overrides the one that's in the shipped packages folder. That may or may not be a good thing for my default package here. So I may want to fix that. I should also point out that we are using a new font here. Previously, I was using Vivala code, and I switched recently. I'm giving Yoshevska a try. I built my own version of it, and I built it with initial base width of 600 instead of 500 because it was just too narrow. But dialing it at 600 seems to give more or less the same glyph width as what I was used to, so it doesn't look super weird that way. The interline spacing is a little smaller, so the more lines fit on the screen, and we can see here Italics works now, which doesn't work in Vivala code because its italics glyphs aren't the same width as its standard glyphs, and I think also bold as well. Maybe bold is okay. Can't remember. One of those two. Definitely italics didn't work. Bold may or may not have worked previously because the glyphs have to be the same size for all the font variants, or Sublime won't use those particular variants for a font because it doesn't want to have weird display issues where when something becomes italicized, the text gets slightly wider and reflows in a different way. So we'll see how that all works out. So far, I'm actually quite liking this as a font. So we got that going for us. Now, I have been playing with this a little bit. The actual code has been checked into the repository in a branch. And what we have here in the events code is the hover event that makes sure that we are, I go ahead and zoom that in just so we can recall how all of this stuff is working. The hover event triggers whenever the mouse hovers somewhere. We only want to be hovering trigger when we're hovering over text, so we don't need to be called if we're over here in the gutter, for example. We only want to hover if the scope under the cursor is a package name in an override audit report, or just an override audit file in general, but that's the reports are the only thing that it uses its own syntaxes for. Then we figure out what sort of report it is. We get a list of all of the packages in the report and get the information for it, and then show pop-up. And we can, of course, jump up to show pop-up here, which is a wrapper around view show pop-up with various informations. And the HTML comes from this string up here by expanding the details, which is all of this. So this is where the details of the body come from. This is returned as a string. It's injected into this package pop-up, and away we go. Now, if I realize that I totally whacked the wrong window here, hang on. I gotta size that to be slightly different and bring it over there. While we're at it, just to keep things tidy, we'll go ahead and do that. Tracking the stream to make sure that it works okay. I think I have, or maybe I don't on this thing over here. Let's see. I have to find an appropriate link. There we go. You open. We'll bring this over here. I'm using this Figma application for defining HTML layouts and such. Something that I was actually introduced to at work, because we're doing a lot of web development now, sort of to my dismay, as you'll find out, because I'm not particularly good with HTML per se. But this is sort of a design I came up with for what the hover pop-up should look like. This is just a screen cap of what the one it currently displays is, which, as you will recall if you watched that last stream, is just all of the information about the package so that we could verify that it was being captured correctly. So we envision that, the name of the package goes here. If this is a complete override, it would say that here, along with whether or not it's expired. We might also have a line under here that says that this package is a dependency library for other packages, or this package is currently disabled. I think possibly both of those, because I believe it is technically possible to disable a dependency, although that's probably not a particularly good idea. And then there would be text in here to say that, this package contains 2 overridden resource files, of which none, oh wait, none have been updated in underlying package. So this line here is conveying this information here. It's not clear from this mock-up, but this should sort of flow appropriately. So it might say this package contains no overrides, or this package contains 2 overridden resource files, or this package contains 2 overridden resource files, of which one has been updated in the underlying package and may need to be reviewed, like so. That's sort of telling you how many are expired. And then there's also, we might also say there are two package resources in the unpacked package folder that do not correspond to resources in the Sublime package file for this package, which is the unknown overrides. And that line, of course, wouldn't be there. And then at the bottom, the check marks for whether this package ships with Sublime, whether it's in the installed packages folder or in the packages folder. And this is sort of the ideal that we're going for per se. To some degree, I will imagine that this is possible, but there are some issues with this. Now, if I grab this tab and throw it over here, if you are not familiar, excuse me, using the show pop-up, which is what we're doing here. Let me go ahead and this is a hover pop-up doing that. Inline build errors, which I can't show right now, which inject, oh, actually, can I say toggle scope display here? Yes. This is an example of a phantom, which is always anchored to the first position of whatever line is directly under the cursor and is, sort of showing the scope as we go in the same way that this does, which is also, of course, a pop-up. And when you do something like arithmetic and say x plus 1, and it's showing information down here, this is all done, turn that off, via HTML that's being rendered, and in Sublime that is rendered with the mini HTML library, which is embedded in Sublime. As we can see here, it's a custom HTML and CSS engine named Mini HTML for displaying stylized content in editor panes. Pop-up windows and phantoms is where HTML content can be displayed. It can also, as I said, be displayed in the command palette, but I believe this documentation was written prior to the implementation of that command palette ability to grab command arguments in the command palette, because that was introduced originally in the code base for Sublime Merge. And as we can see, this line is the important part for us. Mini HTML provides a limited subset of HTML and CSS features found in most web browsers. While only certain CSS and HTML features may be implemented, they are designed to be standard compliant. And then there's some information in here, like these are the tags defined by the default style sheet, custom tags, special image tags can use resources of these three types. Image anchors can have a callback specified so that you can determine where a click happens inside on a link in there, so you can handle interactions. And if you try to make an unordered list, bullets are displayed for the tags, and then other tags aren't implemented, such as tables, and that may also be an issue. There's of course some best practices. There's some special care you have to take because it is possible to have a light or dark color scheme. So for example, this is a dark color scheme. Mariana would be a light color scheme. So to help you out in your CSS, Sublime checks the luminosity of the background color, and if it appears to be more than 0.5, the CSS class light is added to the body tag, or sorry, the HTML tag, and otherwise dark is added, so that you can customize your CSS for colors that will complement both light and dark backgrounds. Now, here's where we can run into some initial problems. The following list provides an overview of supported properties, and if you remember that thing that we're looking at over here, this sort of requires this to be right aligned after the package name, and you would do that by using the magic CSS text align property. But as we'll see here, text align isn't one of the available properties here. And I am by no means any sort of super expert on CSS, so I was having a wee bit of trouble in coming up with a way to uh, write align stuff in the pop-up, so I kind of got derailed pretty quickly. Now, what I did in order to make this easier to test, because you know, as something that's over here in override audit, this is an event handler in override audit, which means I would edit the code in events. Then I have to press F5 and watch to make sure the package reloads, and then come over here and hover the mouse to test, which is nice for what it is. Excuse me. But we want a little more throughput than that. So I copied the initial code that was there. This is the expand details as we just looked at. Here's the show pop-up. And I added just very quick little plugin loaded here. Of course, we know this gets invoked by Sublime when the plugin loads. And so what we do is create our own instance of package info class, which is part of override audit for the user package, which gathers all of the information about the user package. And then we get the active view in the active window, figure out where the cursor is. We determined we want our report to be detailed. Then we call status on our package info to get this. The code over here in events actually does this, of course, a slightly different way. It uses the setting that the report generates to figure out the information. And then it just pops up the pop-up at the cursor location. The net effect being every time I save the code, we just immediately see what the pop-up looks like. And you can see I'm sort of playing around with this a little bit to see what we could do with that HTML. So here's the span other. That would be the complete override. We might even change that here. Complete override expired, like so. So it would look like that, which not as good as it could be. Now, there's some things that I was playing with here. One is, as we can see here, we call show pop-up. We pass what we think the maximum width of the pop-up should be, but we can actually specify how wide the pop-up actually is. Say we said we wanted the width to be, 1024. We can't really do that per se. We could even go like so and see that of all the flags we can provide. I realized after I did that bit of code to grab the cursor location that I could have just passed -1 and it would have done the same thing. We can see max width and max height set the maximum dimensions for the pop-up, after which scroll bars will be displayed. But there's no way to specify exactly how wide the pop-up might actually be. That should be determined by the content of the pop-up. But we'll note, if I was to come up here to the CSS and the H1 tag and let's say width 800 pixels, doesn't seem like it got any wider. Whoops. But you'll notice that the border line here got longer. If I comment that out, oh, well, that's not going to work, is it? I do that, I guess. If I comment that out, see the line ends right at the end of the actual text for complete override expired. But when that's in place, it goes off the right of the pop-up. So it's not actually widening the pop-up in response to the text getting wider per se, or at least, us saying that the width of this is 800 pixels. The text isn't actually that wide, so too bad for us. I had a thought about that though. If we did something like I have here, this site here, oops, pngpixel.com, create a white single pixel thing, I can grab the HTML here. And this is a data URL for a base 64 encoded 1x1 pixel fully oh, maybe I went the wrong way with that. Fully transparent pixel, excuse me. I forgot I was playing with that. Like so, and if I came back over here, oh, actually, I guess for our purposes, I think the reason why I did that was to do that so I could copy, whoops, the HTML one. If I copy that and throw it in here, like this, well, gotta move the cursor over. We see what there's, I don't know if you can see it, there is one white pixel right on top of the U, which is of course not what we want, but we could say width equals, well, actually we wouldn't do it here, would we? Separate those two things. We could say image tags width 800 pix. Oops. Like so. And now the image is really wide, so the whole box gets wide. It's not specified, but this is something I was curious about and I hadn't thought of. Supported units, rems, ems, pixels, points. Rems are recommended because they're based on the font size and they don't cascade. But we really want this to be sort of specified in pixels. And if we were to go like this and say dip, it's a float that represents a device independent pixel. So I was curious if that would actually work. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure that it's doing that or it's just assuming pixels because it can't parse this value. Probably that. Yeah, that's probably a little too wide. That's a little too wide. That might work. If we wanted to have it scaled according to the font size, of course, that doesn't make the max width thing work particularly good, does it? Might go like so. Now the question becomes, how do you? Sorry, we probably want a color red. Yeah, that's not a particularly good red. Actually, we just want the red on the expired there, don't we? Like so. Maybe we want H1 span expired. Dark red. Like so. And I guess we would come down here and say span class equals expired. Like so. That kind of does what we want. That's not a particularly good color though. Yeah, well, you know, we get what we get. Now, I guess the real sort of issue for me here, we're going to leave that pixel thing there as white just so we can verify the width of this thing. And I guess if we said that that's width is 640, then this should also say 640 as well, just so that they're both the same width. The problem with that, of course, is it's supposed to scale with font size. See what happens. If I make the font size bigger, yeah, it's not as foolproof as it could be. All right, better open the, go ahead and revert that before we go super crazy. Oh, yeah, I guess I should point out that this isn't just the base Yoshevska font. It's Yoshevska SS09, which is the glyph set that sort of matches Source Code Pro, which does things like a 0 in the O in the zero, sorry, a period in the or a dot in the middle of the O instead of of the zero instead of a slashed zero. After when I realized that, and I thought maybe I might want the other, just the standard font variant. I decided not to worry about it for the time being because this particular font is something that is freely available. You can get the source on GitHub and build it yourself, and it uses tools that are written in JavaScript. And I have never heard the fans in my desktop scream as loud as they did for the 25 minutes that it took to render this font. As far as I can tell, it's rendered fully with its mathematical curves that are using a special language that the font author created. So I decided to leave well enough alone on that. So the question then becomes, I guess, is it possible for us? Let me maybe modify that so that I can move the mouse around and it stays up just for the time being. How could we write a line that whole operation? And I did want to do a little something else here too. So I might want to say that and grab all of this stuff. Gank it out of there and place it in here. Oh, and maybe we can go ahead and throw it back here so it's indented the way we want, just so that we don't have to do this, I think. We'll see. Whoops, don't do that. Because it sort of makes it a bit of a trick to see the content of the thing. Well, you know, that font size may just be slightly large still. We may have just discovered a bug in... Oh, actually, I guess not. The problem there is that the CSS isn't being applied anymore. This is the standard size of an H1. Wow, that's pretty big. Okay, but I guess like here we might say, oh, this should also change too. Override audit package pop-up. That's something that you should apply so that color scheme authors can target style overrides. Might do that. I think that should probably be okay. And then if we look for package pop-up, format CSS equals underscore CSS and that. So that goes back to doing what we want, but the CSS just sort of looks a little nicer, if you will. Probably if we're going to do that, this doesn't need to be multi-line either. I also discovered something else. I'm not sure. Well, maybe we won't. I'm using BR tags here, but you can see it sort of indents every time it hits one, and that just keeps going and going and going. But if you do that, then ships with Sublime false, installed packages false, contains unpacked files true. And then that's just the end of the HTML, and there's no message that says that the HTML is invalid. So I think it reacts kind of poorly to that sort of thing. I also noticed this, similar fashion. Now it just stops entirely. So it seems like, I don't know if this is like perhaps slightly brittle or what, I did some checking to see how might you align something to the right, and of course, for our own purposes, I was gonna tweak a thing here, wasn't I? This should be class equals complete, like so. And then we can say h1 span dot complete. We could say color blue, for example, just to see if we're actually targeting that. I guess we're not. That's sort of not what I was expecting to have happen there. Maybe I don't need to make it so specific. Yeah, okay. CSS is one of those things that really messes with my head. Okay, that is definitely not. There we go. So there's that, and there's that, and we could say, if we said text align right, nothing happens. So at least I think nothing happens. Border 1 pixel solid green. Yeah. Maybe text align does work, and it doesn't work because the span is only as wide as that. Maybe it needs to be in a div. Let's give that a try. Div class equals right. And, oh, actually, that's not going to work there, is it? Huh. Well, let's test the whole thing. Why don't we? Div class equals right. This is all about testing what is and is not possible. So I would imagine that should have no effect on anything. But if I was to come up here and say dot right text align right, that still has no effect on anything. No. Border 1 pixel solid yellow. So that does not seem to be text aligning squat to squat per se. So using text align, not the way to go. We might also try something a little different here. We could say margin, margin left is auto and margin right is 0. That also doesn't work, and that might be because auto isn't listed as one of the values that you can use for margin. It says positive units. So I'm not sure if that might be a thing. That does indeed move it to the right. This is one of those things where, with the appropriate CSS, maybe I could figure out how to actually pull this off. One of the reasons why I thought it might be an idea to have the pop-up an exact known width is to make this sort of positioning a little easier. If you are watching this and you are a CSS expert and you know how to center something using just these tags and styles, do let me know. Here's my water. So I'm not sure if there's position, relative, and maybe something like that. Oh, Left. It's 200 to the left of where it would have been, but the box for wrapping around it didn't move. So that's interesting. The real question is, negative goes the one, whoops, positive goes the right. I did that. That moves that over a little bit. Whoops. That does move it to the position that one might have suspected. So, yeah. Not sure that that's necessarily the way to go either, because you would need to know exactly how wide this whole thing is, the text is, in order to drop it at the appropriate location. So, for our purposes, we might just go ahead and drop that out. Could do a little of that information. That's complete. That's expired. Let's see. Just say spans in the header look like that. Bold font, under margin, maybe a little high now. It's got a solid underlined border, 2 pixels tall, in the foreground color, which is the text color, which gives it the same white as everything else. So let's remove that for the time being and leave that like that, and continue with maybe coming up with other stuff here. And I want to just go ahead and copy that and see what this does here. That doesn't exist in this font, I suppose. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Or it just doesn't copy that way. We want Unicode checkbox. Yeah, checkbox, like so. This is the page that I think I pulled this from. The question I had was thus. Yeah. In web forms, input type is checkbox is used to display. Well, we already know that ain't gonna work. Python, Unicode character, or checkbox. Yeah, like that. Boop, boop, boop. Let's try throwing this in there. Do, do, do. Boop. Okay. So that's not too shabby as a thing. And I suppose that would just be a, whoops, don't do it that way. There we go. Just a space otherwise. I guess that that space is not quite as wide. Python print Unicode space. Yeah, there is a Python constant for that, and I used to know, well, I used to know what it was. Don't make me look in the history. OBOC? No, I don't think so. Something I used to do in HyperHelp in order to have spaces that didn't mess up the syntax. was doing that sort of thing. But I think that is being cleaned out now. If I did that, do, do, do. 0, 0. Oh. 0, 0, A, 0. That doesn't look any wider. There we go. That order is never what you expect it to be, I find. So those all seem to be the same sorts of things. So that's one way to deal with ships with Sublime installed package contains unpacked files. So how might we deal with that? And if we look at the Figma action somewhere, well, I don't need that anymore. Well, I guess technically we want to do that thing. It should be the last line in the whole thing. So we'll just cut that and have it down here and say result plus equals. Well, that did not work the way one would have expected. If I did that, then it's definitely at the bottom. Okay. And we would say dot format ships equals /u 2713 if details is shipped else A000, and maybe we want to wrap that in quotes and copy paste like so. This one would be is installed, and this is unpacked. Now, of course, this is very much not the nice way to pull this off, but ships installed and unpacked. If we're going to do it that way, we might as well say shipped, like so. Shipped and installed and unpacked. And we broke the code. Bo-bo-bo. Oh, right, because all of those things should be wrapped in quotes. There we go. Now, interestingly, I think if we remove our magical image here, it's still going to be that wide because that's just how wide that text is. So that kind of works out nice, I guess. Maybe could be styled a little nicer color-wise. Because this is actually HTML, we should be able to do, I would imagine, something like this. Boop. And it still looks the same. We might want more spaces in there. Just a couple. Just to pad it out a little. This does look kind of big. Uh-oh. The live stream health. Okay, well, it seems to be going okay. Okay, let's go ahead and close that window then. It does seem kind of, well, I guess it's about the width that we expected it to be. this part here could be thus a little nicer. We may, again, want that image. Oh, neat. We may want that image to force it to a minimum width, maybe. So not sure what the magic of this would be. So we wrap that and that and that in one of them there. Wrap with tag is what key? This one? Nope, this one. Span class equals something. Just so we can get a little bit of extra action in there. What would we actually call this? Status is not already a thing, right? So let's say like so. And then up here, we can also say, well, let's get rid of that because it doesn't do nothing. And dot status, let's say, just so that text is a slightly different color. Again, this, is all about deciding on the sort of the layout of what this should have. So the user package is very much just in the packages folder and nothing else. The HTML package ships with Sublime and is in the packages folder. Package control is in the installed packages folder. These could also be links that you click on to actually do stuff, which is something that we're also going to look at here. So in any case, with that, we no longer need this ships with Sublime installed because it's already in the body in the other part. So is shipped, is installed, and is unpacked don't have to be in the thing at all, like so. Next, if we look at, oh wait, do I have a size on that thing? Yeah, I do. Let's take that size out for the time being. So it's just as wide as it needs to be. Like so. Now let's get rid of this complete override and also expired type action here. And trying to think, we want that text to just always be there, but we only want it to be visible in certain cases, right? So what we could try doing, we don't need this anymore either, right? Okay, so the font size for that is that big, it's bold. There's a margin of one character underneath it to give it that little bit of a divide between that and the rest of the content under it, which maybe we don't want anymore here for what we're about to do, but we'll leave that for the time being. We do want that border. Does this work? No. Is that one of the properties that's listed here? Border. Style, none or solid. Yeah. All right. Good enough. If I remove it entirely, it's none. Yeah. Nice. Can actually grab colors from the syntax out of this. So what we could do, storage.type is the scope but that requires magic. Yeah, we won't worry about that for right now. Also, the colors would need to be worked on if it's a light color scheme, um, just to see what happens. I know, let's not see what happens because that'll fiddle stuff around. But we were gonna say, so those two things are light blue, that thing's red. Anything that's in a paragraph has a slightly taller font. And these are things that are all sort of left over from the code that we swiped from HyperHelp. Let's do this. So hide display none would work. I'm just thinking, is there a way that we can apply a class to that? Now, I should also say, this is something I was thinking about. There are various Python dependencies that you can use. Jinja, I believe that's one of them. And faceless users, MD Popups library that create HTML for you out of like Markdown and stuff like that. And that would probably make generating this pop-up a lot easier rather than doing it this way. But I'm doing it this way on purpose. And the reason for that is, I can't remember if I mentioned this in any of my other videos or live streams, but I used to be really big into game development, and I still kind of am, but I do more Sublime stuff now than I did game development. And in that, you could write a game like, with actual code like this. And there's also various tools you could use like Unity and Game Maker and things like that. Stencil is another one that I've played with. And those are great for what they are, but they're not recommended for people that are learning to do a thing because they do so much of the lifting for you that you don't really understand what exactly it is that's actually happening. And you can run into problems down the line because you don't have those skills to know how stuff is intended to work, and then you don't know what to tweak. So it's really recommended. And Chris Delion of Gam Keto is really big on this. That when you learn to do game programming, and I extend this to everything, including Sublime Text plugins and stuff, you should do it yourself first so that you understand how things are working and why they're working, and then move on towards dependencies and other things or other tools that can do the heavy lifting for you. Because at that point, you know how to do it and it's just tedious, but you have those problem solving skills. That's why we're not using, there's a Sublime dependency made by Tom and Fichtfall that abstracts a lot of the API away and makes a lot of things that you might want to do in a Sublime plugin a lot easier because it's done the work for you. Like, for example, generating text to a buffer, it sort of provides a file-like object for that. And that is like fantastic for what it is. But if you're new to plugins, then you're not really gaining any understanding into how any of the plugin system actually works. And that leaves you at a bit of a disadvantage. So that's why we're doing this here. Something like that, maybe. Because I'm thinking, let's do that. Well, there's already going to be something in here, isn't there? So yeah, we don't need a show, let's say. I'm thinking that since the span for complete override, like so, is the class complete, which is what colors it, and then that one does something. If this was hide, then that whole thing goes away because the span is hidden and the thing inside of it is also hidden. So if we said is complete here like this, and is complete expired like that, but these weren't here, then this might be, is this a complete override? Is complete if that, else hidden, and is complete expired is equal to expired if is complete override expired, else hidden. And it doesn't like that, does it? No, I didn't. Oh, I missed the, there we go. We've got to bring it over here so we can see it. Package control complete override expired. Okay, well that clearly did not do what one might have thought. Because it should have shown that. So what do I wonder? Result, print result. Let's do that, and then we can see what it actually printed. It printed, oh, this part doesn't need to be in here either for right now. So let's do that. H1, span, class equals hidden, complete override slash span, hidden, expired. Okay, so why did that not work? Is hidden not a class? Oh, it's hide. Sorry. There we go. So that looks like that. So now we're going to need, in order to test this, because we're doing it in isolation, default is something that is a complete override. So if I change this to default, we see it's a complete override and also expired. Is there anything else that's a complete override in here? Let's go ahead and generate one. Diff, default, and local Sublime Text 3 packages default. Actually, I should have did that. So they're the same. So let's get rid of that. So now when I do this, default is not any sort of special package like so. It's just shipped and that. Let's say that I have a lot of overrides. Clojure, yeah. CP home local Sublime Text 3 packages Clojure to here like so. And then if I reload this, Clojure is an expired package, is a complete override, but it's not expired. And we see it just say complete override. The way we totes want it to do. And if we did it again for something else that is a shipped package, let's say Erlang, whoops, to here, change that to here. Now Erlang is a complete override as well. So if I touch date equals 10 years ago, now when I do it, it is expired because it's overriding, but the shipped package is newer than the one that in the installed package, which is the one that it's using. So that is a handy little thing for that. That's looking not too shabby. Maybe we might even change this text a little bit. Complete override of shipped package. It's probably not terrible because shipped packages don't have particularly long names, and that's the only thing that those can appear for. I guess if there was a really long package name, that might cause a problem. Whoops. The longest of the shipped packages. Color scheme default, maybe. For all the ones that are here, yes. So let's go ahead and test it with that, just to see what we come up with. I guess it has to be expired for that to happen, doesn't it? Sublime Text 3 packages, color scheme default to here. Oop. Notice how that it's now overriding it. We saw the color scheme swap out for just a second. And touch date 5 years ago. Color scheme default. Save this file, and that still seems, it just barely hits. Maybe we could just say overrides shipped package. Might be a nicer way to say it. Da, da, da. Default, color scheme default, override shipped package, expired. Okay, so that's nice. Now we got these two things here, which I think are going to have the same sort of action as what we added for that. Oh, sorry, the stuff that we just added to this thing here. Class equals is disabled. What did we say that should say? Whoops. I think we said this package is currently disabled. Actually, maybe. Well, we'll leave it that way for the time being. And span class equals is dependency. Again, this package is a dependency library for other packages. This package is a dependency library for other packages, like so. And that gets rid of those. And we would do the same thing here. We would say something if details.disabled else hidden. And if it's a dependency, something if details.isDependency else hidden. But it should be a string. Now we have totally broken it to the nth degree. What are we printing here? Clear console. Parse error. Oh, neat. There we go. So this one is that. Now, in order to test this, if we said that this was the color scheme, the thing that we were doing was vintage, then this package is currently disabled and there's that bit there. And if we said pathlib, this package is a dependency library for other packages. I'm not big on spelling. Dependency library for other packages. And let's say this is disabled and this is dependency, like that. Okay. Now, what we might say here, we're giving this a bottom margin of 1 rem. If we could say, what did I just change that? What's it currently displaying? Is a dependency library for other packages. So we might want what was I just thinking there? Let's see. Dot dependency. And we might here say color light red. Is that not the not the word I used, is it? No, it totally is. Huh. Span span class equals dependency. This package is a dependency library for other packages. I would have thought that that would, make a color happen. That is class, right? Yeah. Font size works. That must not be a valid color. Okay. So margin top. I can't remember. Can margins be negative? No. But I can adjust the top position, I guess. Top minus 0.5 rem. Whoop. That doesn't do squat, huh? Font size, let's see. Makes the writing tiny. That's kind of what we want. But we do want it to be bumped up. Oh, maybe we need to say position relative. That's a little better. Tighten it up a little bit. That 0.75 is based on the fact that the H1 throws a 1 rem margin on the bottom of itself. So that allows us to keep that action there. Okay. And the other one was disabled. So we might say dot disabled color light gray. No, that's probably not a good color. Font size 0.75 rem, position relative top minus 0.75 rem, like so. And we would have to jump down here and swap pathlib to vintage, like so. this package is currently disabled. That's actually not super terrible. Now the question remains, and this is the sort of thing that it's tricky to do stuff with. Disable package. Package controls disabling of packages doesn't show you dependencies. It's actually pretty smart about that. Did that do what I thought it should? No, huh? Oh, that's weird. I've never seen that happen before. I'm going to quit and restart. There we go. Core settings, find ignored packages, and add hyperhelp core to it, which on the whole, I don't think super matters for anything realistically. If I reload this, I don't know what it does show it up as. Hey, it's just a Sublime no, install package no, contains unpacked files. True, not a complete override, not expired. It is disabled. It is a dependency. We don't, override audit doesn't rely on Sublime Text's own package mechanism. So if we said hyperhelp core, this package is currently disabled, and this package is a dependency library for other packages. What we would like is for those two things to be on separate lines. But I don't know if we can do that in a way where we don't mess up. Span with P. All right, I guess that does work. I think the dependency should be on top of the other one though. If it's going to display both of them, it should say it's a dependency library for other packages and that the package is currently disabled in that order. That's not too shabtastic, realistically. So we've got some good stuff here so far. We can't handle expired overrides the way, or complete overrides the way we want, but that's not uber terrible per se. And we've gone past an hour. I really should call the stream here, but I kind of wanted to sort of finish this up and so I can sit and, quote unquote, stew on it a little. See how I like it, that sort of stuff. So let's go ahead and do a little of that. Now, this is just classes for things. Like all of that stuff. I guess we should keep this, but put it down here. So if we're going to look at it, we can see the entire pop-up. Although we don't want word wrap to be on in our console, so it looks a little nicer. That is what we're generating. And interestingly, here the Unicode space is a slightly wider character than that, but it does look a little better to me here than it did otherwise. We could also maybe use the Unicode character that has the check mark in a box and an X in a box. But dependency library for other packages is currently disabled. So now it's just this whole overrides thing. If not is detailed, then we might say result plus equals. And again, maybe this isn't even something that we technically have to do here. But we'll do it this way first, and then we'll see what happens. Did I have an example of what I wanted this to say in that case? This package does. Oh, wait. Package may contain overrides. Package cannot contain overrides. Aha. So I actually wanted that to be a different thing. Okay, so if details overrides, then else it is possible for package resources to be overridden in like so. Otherwise, this package cannot contain package resource overrides because it is not represented by a Sublime package file. I can't remember if we need is detailed to be false here to be able to test this. Boom. Boy, that is some crap right there. The height's not high enough. Is it possible to specify a width in a paragraph tag? Oh, it's throwing stuff in there twice. That can't be good. Let's comment all of this stuff out. Like that. Let's make that a little. This package cannot contain. Okay, so that looks like that. This package cannot contain. So if this was a P style equals width 640 pix. Okay, that's nice. Class equals body. Let's do that instead, and then we can tweak this up nicely. Does it do that even there? Yeah. The size is still far too wide in that case. And the BR tag introduces white space in an annoying fashion. But we don't need the other thing there. So body. Yeah, we do want that to do that. Oops. 0.9. This package cannot contain package resource overrides because it is not represented by a Sublime package file. That's nice. If it's not is detailed, then it's one of these two things. So this one also needs this same action here. This package, oh, contain overridden package resources as it contains, as it is represented by both a folder in the packages folder as well as by a Sublime package file. So for that to be the case, what's a good example of this? XML. Da, 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 da. This package may contain overridden package resources, as it is, but it is, there's something about it that is breaking the pop-up because the bottom part of it's not appearing, even though the HTML is there. If I was to comment all of this code out, that part works now. So why is that necessarily the case? So again, if I said vintage, it cannot contain resources because it is not represented. So may contain, what am I missing? bi/b/i. Oh, the b and the I are in the wrong order there, so it's probably got some sort of funky parse failure. biib, biib, biib. No? Oops. What did I do now? bi/i/b. This package may contain the packages folder as well as by a, oh, there we go. That is ridiculous. Maybe the width just keeps going. So what if we tweak our max width to be 800? Okay, and what if we make the max height 800? Yeah, for some reason that has no effect on anything. So let's keep that in play. Could be tweaked a little so that it fills that out a little nicer. If it's not detailed, then do this. else it is detailed, in which case result plus equals p class equals body. This is where pedantism really gets in the way. This package contains overrides overridden package resource files of those overrides expired da-da. Oh, actually, yeah, okay, we'll do it this way first just to see what it looks like. This package contains overrides overridden. This package contains 0, 1, 2 overridden package resource files of those overrides expired have been updated in the underlying Sublime package file and may need to be checked to see if they are out of date. Like so. So something that has overrides in it. The default package is this may contain overridden resources. That's right, it may. And if detailed was true, then we know that this package contains. Oh, I guess I should probably do the thing, huh? Overrides equals details. Overrides and expired equals details. Expired. Like so. And that is broken. Oh, because it should be expired underscore overrides like so. This package contains 1 overridden package resource files. Of those overrides, 0 have been updated in the underlying Sublime package file and may need to be checked to see if they are out of date. And I need an example of default is totally one of those packages. Okay. P class equals body slash P, and we might say unknown equals details, unknown overrides like so. Okay. Package resources exist in the packages folder for this package, but do not exist in the Sublime package file, like so. One package resources exist in the packages folder for this package, but do not exist in the Sublime package file. Okay, so with all of that in play, I think that's all the information that we could convey here. We add that part on the end. We could do, we'll leave that in there. put that back. So for the purposes of our plugin, we have this CSS now, and we have the package pop-up as two separate things. That happens in this events. So package pop-up is now two things. It's the CSS. Whoops, what did I missed? There we go. It's the CSS in one item and the pop-up body there. In our expand details, we have all of this stuff now. Got to stop doing that. That's this thing. And in our show pop-up, we need that line to be different. The one that previously would only format the body, but now it also needs to inject the CSS. So if I reload the package, give this a test in an actual report. Whoops. I'll do that. Go in here. Now let's see. Contains overridden package resources. Package loader. It takes a little longer to pop than one might have thought. Now this information is all cached. Cannot contain package resources because it doesn't. Okay, ASP may contain resource. We don't know if it does, but it's in two different places. The user width is a dependency library for other packages. This package cannot contain package resource overrides because it is not represented as a Sublime package file. And similar to that, here we can say this. This is that too, and vintage, like so. Like so. There's other information that we could display in these pop-ups, like whether or not it was installed by package control or not, based on it appearing in package control settings. Each one of these dependencies has a file in it that tells you that it's a dependency, and packages that have dependencies have to have something metadata file in them that says that they contain a dependency. So we could gather that information, and we could say exactly what packages use package setting context as a dependency. These are some really neat ideas for things that we could throw in here. Now, are there any actual overridden things? Yes, Erlang is shipped overrides a shipped package and is expired. It can't contain resources. And what was the other one? Clojure. It overrides shipped packages. It can't contain resources because it's not represented by a Sublime package file. On the whole, pretty pleased with how all of that worked out. Now, can continue working on this. Like, for example, this has more stuff in it than it should. Oh, sorry, I guess not. One overridden package. Just sort of because we are using the BR tag in here to inject line feeds in, and as we can see, if we know that the text is actually roughly this many characters wide, we could do the same in the splitting here so that this text flows a little bit nicer. I think is a nice way to pull that off. And of course, there's more we could do here. Well, like a lot more. The CSS could be tightened up, colors could be better. Expand details doesn't need to have all of this stuff in it. There could be all of this could be one HTML block, and the classes that we apply, much like up here, would be either the body paragraph if this is the case, or the hide if it's not. So one of these two would display, but not both, depending on if it's detailed or not. And the same for this other stuff here. So that is some more stuff that we can do. But we're going to go ahead and call the stream here. We have been going for an hour and a half, but I think we got some nice functionality here. And this will work in here. We can see it actually says more stuff. Because in this, unlike in the package report, in a diff report, it actually has this information. This report is wildly out of date, mind you. So I need to do that. So we can see that. And I'd have to do something similar with the other ones to test those out. But I think that's pretty good. Now, other things we can do, if I said open in Explorer on a file, it opens the file manager. I think once it eventually wakes up my NAS, the location is here. I think that on some platforms, you get that whole, open in Finder or reveal in Finder or whatever. The same thing sort of happens for this. Open in Explorer would open the actual folder. This package pop-up could have these things set so that when you say it ships with Sublime, you could click on this and open the folder where the package exists. Might be a thing to do. Maybe not. I don't know. Got to get this part all cleaned up first. So let's call the stream there. If you have been watching, thank you. If you're watching these not live, but you're watching the archives, then you can always hop in on a live stream and ask any questions, and feel free to do that, and completely derail what it is I'm working on. If you have a Sublime Text problem, something you're trying to set up, something you're trying to do, maybe we can work it out in the live stream. If you like these videos, you might want to use the thumb and subscribe buttons you'll find down below the video as you deem appropriate if you found the video useful, if you'd like to know when I'm going to be live again. And down in the description of the video is a link to my other channel where every Monday a Sublime Text video comes out. And you can subscribe to that channel if you want to see more focused and edited and less rambly guy doesn't know how to do HTML type videos. Until the next live stream, which should be next Tuesday, whatever day that is, this is OdatNurd asking you to please have a sublime day.